Hey, Jake, what's up?
Oh, hey, Carrie. I just read a book.
Do tell.
The book was Anne of Green Gables, and it was by L.M. Montgomery and published in 1908.
I read that same book, not at all coincidentally. And yeah, it is super great. I'm so glad that we chose this book to do, and I'm really excited to talk about it with you today.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about it. We'll spoil things, we'll swear, and we'll have a good old time. And also, I should mention that the book that we're going to do after this is The Selection by Kiera Cass, which we have things to say about, but I think we should probably just get straight to the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
Yay! So, Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah. Man, I like this book.
Isn't it delightful? Like, everything about it is so wonderful, and I love it, and I love Anne, and I love everybody except for one person who we will discuss later.
I know who. Is it the person who is the worst?
She is the absolute worst. I'm also reading this book for my YA book club.
Oh.
So I was like, you know what? I don't want to have to read 2 books this month. I'm going to choose Anne of Green Gables for that. And my friend Sarah Redacted.
Oh yes, past guest.
Yes, she said, I'm loving this book, and also said, you know how I knew that I was going to really, really like this book. And I was like, what? She's like, it was in the first chapter when Rachel Lynde was just like, oh, I'm a super busybody and I need to know what's going on everywhere. And that's when you knew, like, Anne of Green Gables is going to be some good shit, because we've got a busybody who's going to poke her nose into everything and judge everybody, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so for me, I think there were kind of 2 things. One is that when Matthew goes to the train station and finds Anne there, in the book it says, Matthew had taken the scrawny little hand awkwardly in his. Then and there he decided what to do. He could not tell this child with the glowing eyes that there had been a mistake. He would take her home and let Marilla do that. And that was great. I was like, okay, yes, I like this book. And then after Marilla decides that they can keep Anne, she's talking to Matthew about it, and she says, perhaps an old maid doesn't know much about bringing up a child, but I guess she knows more than an old bachelor. So you just leave me to manage her. When I fail, it'll be time enough to put your oar in. Which, just like the fatalistic kind of good humor, I don't know, just great. Like, immediately, I like these characters. Like, they're not perfect, but they have the right attitude somehow.
So how stressed out were you about Anne and, Matthew and Marilla maybe not taking her in, even though the book is called Anne of Green Gables and they live at Green Gables?
Yeah, the title was kind of the giveaway there.
It doesn't matter. I still get stressed out every time. Like, oh, what if this time they don't take her?
Oh my God.
Oh.
The chapter where she decides to take her, like the way that I also thought was hilarious. Like the way that the tension is ratcheted up, where like she gets there and she's already kind of got doubts that maybe she shouldn't actually send Anne back to the orphanage. And then the woman says, oh, well, we wouldn't send her back to the orphanage. Actually, I know exactly who will give it to her. And she says who it is. And it's someone who Marilla doesn't like. And Marilla's like, well, yeah, maybe. And then let me think about that, and maybe we can send her over there. And then it was like, oh, well, actually, here she is coming up the stairs. We could just hand her over right now. Like, it's just so great. And then Marilla's like, you know what? No way.
Actually, what I'm going to do is keep this kid, but I'm not going to tell her now because she's so dreamy and she's going to be all romantical about it. So I'm going to wait, and I'm going to be practical. I'll tell her in the morning. So she spends the whole night crying.
Yeah, well, we all make our parenting decisions. I say we all. I don't have any kids. And maybe some of them, in retrospect, we would handle a little differently. So why is Anne so likable? Like, she's obviously awesome.
Anne is likable because she is flawed, because she is fiery. I don't know. She's been dealt a pretty shitty hand in life, and she kind of gives no fucks.
Yeah, I kind of feel like things that might seem annoying in another person, you accept it, Anne, partly because these are like survival mechanisms. Like she has them to deal with. And she doesn't complain about it, but just the way she tells it, like Marilla can be like, oh yeah, this kid has been through it. At the orphanage and then raising 8 kids for another family when she was like 8 years old or something. And every time, every time someone died, none of the relatives wanted to take her. It's just like, so you kind of understand how she got to be who she is. And it's just really admirable. She's just an admirable person.
Yeah, like every single person ends up liking her. They think they're going to hate her because she is, she is boisterous. She is loud. She makes mistakes. And they love her for it.
Yeah. Mrs. Lind says that she's ugly and basically tells her to go fuck herself.
My favorite part about that is when she goes to apologize. She makes it as pathetic as possible, and she's loving like every single thing she's saying. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna milk this shit."
And Marilla sees what she's doing, and she's like, "I want to punish her, except that was the most hilarious thing I've ever seen."
And I think there's a lot of that with Marilla, because she's very stern and she's very proper. And yet she thinks that Anne is hilarious, but also will not tell her that because she doesn't want it to go to her redhead.
Right. I feel like it would be easy to set up this kind of opposition between them because they often are kind of pulling in opposite directions so that you would root for one over the other. And I guess you kind of do root for Anne more than Marilla, but they both are like well-intentioned and trying to do the best thing. And they're also both kind of right. Most of the time.
Yeah.
And so it just, there's conflict without you being mad at anyone in particular necessarily. It's an interesting trick.
And gets her friend drunk.
Yeah.
And Marilla's super mad at her until she realizes it's sort of her own fault.
She put the raspberry cordial she had put it someplace other than where she told Anne was. And so Anne,
she's like, "Girl, why didn't you know that this was a raspberry cordial?" She's like, "I'm an orphan."
Yeah.
Fuck you. I don't know what raspberry cordial tastes like.
Well, she also didn't drink any because she wanted to be a good host. I also loved so afterwards, after Marilla figures it all, like what's happened and that it's not actually Anne's fault. She, she thinks the whole thing is hilarious. And Anne is like, "Can you go to Diana's mother and explain the situation to me? Because I don't think I'll handle it correct." And Marilla's like, "Got it." And she goes over and gets in this huge fight with her. And goes back and is like, "That woman is an idiot. I don't know what I was thinking," and the fact that she just completely blew that whole interaction, again. But I mean that because some friends of mine had a band together that unfortunately no longer exists called Anne's Cordial, based on this incident. And I actually wrote to all of them and asked them if they had stuff. We have a lot of listener. Well, I guess not everyone is a listener, but we have a lot of mail to read this time.
Not everyone is a listener, Jacob. Everybody is a listener.
Everyone is a listener, whether they know it or not. We sneak into their houses and play it to them while they're sleeping.
We sure do.
So I'll read you the shortest one.
Okay.
This is from Natalie Redacted. Natalie says, "I wish I had something intellectually interesting about the books, but I was not at that stage of development as a child. I just identified, being a teenager in the 80s, with the need to have big puffy sleeves on dresses, just as Anne did."
Oh, so Anne's sleeves are like...
That's like a running theme throughout the book. It's amazing.
It's a running theme throughout the book because, she grew up, poor. She had nothing. She had this horrible old, what was it, a wincey dress.
Yes. I don't know what that is, but...
I looked it up. It's basically a pretty cheap, like, dense fabric. And it's pretty ugly. So she had this dress made out of this wincey fabric, and then Marilla made all of her dresses, but Marilla, being the sensible woman that she is, made very sensible dresses. And so Anne, being the romantic that she is, she wants nothing more than puff sleeves. Oh, if she could ever have puff sleeves, that would be oh so dreamy. And then who gets her puff sleeves?
Matthew.
Oh my God. I love Matthew so much.
He is. Yeah, like he goes to the store to buy the fabric, and so he goes up, and he's like mortally afraid of women. That's one of his things. He doesn't really like to talk to anyone, but especially women. He's shy around. So he goes to the store, and there's a woman at the shop. So he goes up and he's like, okay, I'm going to buy the fabric. So he goes up to her. She says, okay, I need to buy a rake. And it's December. And she's like, what? I guess we have one in storage. Let me go look. And then he's like, okay, great. There's one other thing I want. I need 10 pounds of brown sugar.
I love him so much. He's just like, I would say next to Anne, he is the most charmingly endearing character. Like, I love him because he's immediately taken by Anne, and Anne can do no wrong in his eyes. And for a man who is mortally afraid of women, he notices how they dress and how Anne dresses differently and just wants nothing more than to make Anne happy. And I tear up. I love him.
Right. And he and Anne are like complete opposites in a lot of ways. He doesn't really have the imagination, and he hates talking, and he doesn't really like being around other people. And Anne is the opposite of all of that. But
yet it works for them because he likes to listen to her. He doesn't want to listen to any other motherfucker, but he will listen to Anne.
Yeah. We could just recite favorite moments for the next 40 minutes, I'm sure.
I know we could.
But, well, let's do a couple more, though.
Okay.
What's another moment you loved?
I really love a lot of the moments of Anne being in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the reason I really like that is, there are books that are written for girls where school isn't like the priority,
mm-hmm.
or being smart isn't important. But for Anne, she starts off, she's like, I've never been to school. Fuck this. I don't know. But she cares. And the fact that she cares a lot to do well and to beat the boys just makes me really admire her. Maybe because a lot of times in books, especially I think of that era or earlier, like the Little House books. I mean, they go to school, but it's like, you go to school until you have babies.
Right.
But for her, it was just like, I go to school and I'm going to be smarter than anybody else. I'm going to prove that I'm not just, this fiery redheaded orphan, that I can be somebody. And I love Anne. And I'm just going to like ramble a lot about my love for Anne and how much like she as a character inspires girls to be fiery, to be, to have emotions, to be angry, to be happy, to feel sadness, and also to be smart.
And to be ambitious. Like she has real...
Yeah, she has a lot of ambition. Like she, I remember at the end she was saying to Marilla, when I was at Queens, like I saw everything as a straight line. But now, I see things a little differently, but she still has the same drive,
mm-hmm.
and she still has an end point and beyond. And that's something that's really special about this character in this book.
I think one of the things that the book shows is that she's an extraordinary person who will achieve extraordinary things regardless. But then you just see that the way that she blossoms when, like when she's given half a chance.
Yeah.
When they get the new teacher who is actually a good teacher. When she gets adopted by Matthew and Marilla. She just goes on to become an amazing person and get all these achievements. including winning the scholarship and everything. So can we talk about some kind of weird things about the book?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, this whole like orphan thing of where people send for orphans to basically work for them as laborers, that apparently is real.
Oh.
Like if you look in Wikipedia for the orphan train.
Well, I'm about to do that. So pardon me. I want to start clicking.
Well, I'll read you the first paragraph. The orphan train movement was a supervised welfare program that transported orphans and homeless children from crowded eastern cities of the United States to foster homes located largely in rural areas of the Midwest. The orphan trains operated between 1854 and 1929, relocating about 200,000 orphaned, abandoned, or homeless children. I mean, so that Prince Edward Island is in a different direction, but I imagine it's the same sort of program. So you really could just kind of basically, I want an 11-year-old boy, send me one. I need someone to help me out on the farm, and they would do it. And in the Wikipedia article, it talks about there were charges of that it wasn't supervised very well. And, and you could kind of imagine that some of those children might not.
And there's 200,000 kids that got relocated over, that time span. I would imagine some people got slipped through the cracks.
Yeah. So because I read that, I was like, was there like this sort of strange quasi-slavery of children that I just didn't know about before? And it seems like there was.
Many orphan-trained children went to live with families that placed orders specifying age, gender, and hair and eye color. Others were paraded from the depot into a local playhouse where they were put up on stage. Thus, the origin of the term "up for adoption."
Oh, yeah.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's a thing. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, just wanted to put a little sadness into this whole thing. Another thing, okay, so the schoolmaster who appears to be hitting on a 16-year-old for like the first half of the book, Prissy Andrews.
Yeah.
That was totally creepy as well.
It was totally creepy and it went nowhere. And I was like sort of waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
Like, suddenly both he and Prissy Andrews disappeared. Mm-hmm. But nothing really happened.
Yeah, I don't think they even disappeared together per se.
Yeah.
And no one, it seems like something that everyone kind of knows about and no one really cares about. It's weird. But also, apparently 16 years old is an adult on Prince Edward Island, because at the end of the book, when Anne gives up her scholarship, Marilla tells her that she shouldn't let her. And Anne is like, I'm 16 and a half. I could do whatever I want. And I was like, whoa.
Well, she's already gone off to college for a year.
Yeah. So, different times, I guess, but geez.
Very different times. I was really confused about the whole going to Queens. I'm like, wait, Queens isn't that an actual college? So she's going to an actual college, but it's only a year program. And then this is breaking my cat brain. I don't understand.
I didn't look that up, but I took it to be some kind of boarding school, I guess. Like college prep.
I think so, but I think at least now it's an actual school. Yeah, it's in Ontario.
Oh. So the ending, the first time I read it, the ending kind of pissed me off.
Why did it piss you off?
Well, the second time it made more, it didn't as much, and maybe if I continue to read it, it would make more sense. But because everything is going great for Anne, she got the scholarship and everything. And then in the last 2 chapters of the book, I think, or maybe it's 3, they're like, oh, have you heard anything about this bank? And Anne's like, oh, yeah, I hear it might be in danger of going bust. And he's like, okay, yeah, well, we talked to them and they said that it's fine, but we're a little worried. And then 2 pages later, Matthew is dead. And it turns out it's because he had a heart attack when he got this letter saying the bank had failed and all their savings are gone. And then a few pages after that, Marilla finds out that she's going blind and will be, if she's not careful, blind in 6 months. And she wants to sell Green Gables, and Anne has to give up her scholarship and stay behind. And it was all like very sudden and seemed kind of melodramatic in a book that otherwise was kind of made fun of melodrama. And so that I didn't like.
I think they actually lead up to that stuff a lot. Marilla has a lot of headaches throughout the book.
Yeah.
The last half of the book, it's always talking about Matthew's heart.
Right. And I mean, that's the reason why they want to adopt a kid in the first place, is because Matthew has heart problems and wants someone to help him in the fields.
And he never got that help. Well, he did. He had to hire a kid.
Yeah. So, I mean, right. The second time around, like, I got those signs, it was signposted more. And then also I kind of appreciated that kind of the point of the book is not that these terrible things happen and destroy the family so much as these bad things happen, but then, Anne and Marilla, it's not stopping them.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point of the book, is even these terrible things don't stop Anne. She still has her plans. So I appreciated that more, but the first time around, it was just like a big shock to me.
I think what pisses me off is just the fact that Matthew dies at all.
Yeah, I know. He shouldn't die. He should live forever.
I mean, he's just so perfect. And, they have this lovely, touching moment the evening before, and then the morning, dead.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not ready for this.
Oh, and the other thing, like I was talking about melodrama, like even the chapter titles, towards the end of the book, the last few titles are The Hotel Concert, A Queen's Girl, The Winter at Queen's, The Glory and the Dream, The Reaper Whose Name is Death. So one of those is not like the others.
But if Anne were to write a poem, that's what she would title it.
That is true.
If we can say anything about our girl Anne, is that her and Jughead together,
oh my God,
would write the most amazing novel.
I have to say, so we're referring to our our watching of Riverdale, which we released the first episode here, and we're also releasing things on the Patreon. But when all the stuff with the Prissy Andrews and the school teacher was going on, I was thinking of Riverdale.
How could you not? I mean,
I was like, man, these tropes have been around.
Riverdale is just a trashy Anne of Green Gables.
Oh yeah, totally. That's how they promote it, I think.
I think so. I think they're like, fiery redhead. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe some adoption. Check. Everyone is a little sketchy. Possibly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a shady Anne of Green Gables. So one thing that I think is also hilarious about Anne is it's just, we've sort of touched on this, but how like dramatic she can be.
Yes.
And how like she throws herself into it, because just I think for the sheer joy of it sometimes.
Oh yeah, totally.
But she's like, oh, I've always wanted a haunted wood, so I decided that this was going to be the haunted wood, and I can't dare go through there. Don't make me. Oh. And I love it. And she gets like really into like writing stories, so she has a story writing club, and her and her friends like act out all the dramatic pieces that they're reading in school and show us drowns. But that's beside the point.
Yeah.
It's hilarious because I think, I don't know, I think a lot of girls can see themselves in this, because I don't know, that's just like what you do. That's how you play. You act stupid and you're with your friends, so it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. And I also like that, like, whenever anyone else reads any of the stories, they think they're hilarious, which I'm sure they are.
Oh, I bet they're amazing. I wish they had like copies of the stories, because we'd have tears on our eyes reading them, because she takes it both so seriously and also, I don't know.
Yeah.
I love her. I love her.
Yeah.
It's just be a lot of that for me. I'm sorry.
You're saying that just reminds me of when, after Anne gets Diana drunk, they meet and Diana tells her that she's not allowed to see her anymore. She's like, "Oh, Diana, will you promise faithfully never to forget me, the friend of your youth, no matter what dear friends may caress thee?" Indeed, I will, sobbed Diana. I guess this whole thing. And it's like sincere, but it's also melodramatic. And man. I mean, one of the things that it's great about Anne of Green Gables is like there are a lot of kind of tropes that are avoided, or that it could, I guess, maybe not avoided so much as a less skilled writer might easily find themselves falling into these kind of patterns of like, I mean, I feel like the sort of manic pixie dream girl is Anne of Green Gables written poorly without thinking about what you're doing.
I think if that were the case, she would have hooked up with Gilbert like page 1
instead of hitting him over the head with her slate.
And that's another thing I just love about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I read that. I was like, yeah, that's fucking right, Anne. Hit that guy with your slate. That's totally inappropriate.
And she spends the whole book just saying, fuck that guy. Fuck him.
Yep.
Fuck that guy. Until the very end, she's like, okay, you know what? We can be friends, I guess, only because I still need to beat your ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a non-skilled writer would have made her more interested in boys and more interested in, I don't know, being a little more vapid, instead of like, she's a really smart woman who is also interested in things that are, fashionable and musical and literary. Like, she's interested in a lot of different things, but it's not just like, I don't know, some of the other girls, which are kind of dumb, sweet but dumb.
There could be a whole fish out of water thing, except it's not. Like, Anne knows what she's doing.
Yeah, Anne, like everybody else, is a fish out of water.
Well,
and Anne's just,
that's kind of true.
Anne's just like, fuck all y'all, I know what's up. Like, she's pretty, like, for someone who's always like, oh, I don't like my freckles, oh, I don't like my hair, oh, I don't like this wincey dress. Like, Anne loves herself.
Yeah.
Anne has had a shit life, and she's like, fuck. I mean, I say that a lot, but I'm like, she is just like, fuck all y'all. Like, get out of my way, bitches.
Mm-hmm. But she's like, she's never spiteful or whatever.
Well, she's sometimes a little spiteful.
Well, who isn't?
There's just a few people that need Anne's spite. One of those.
Oh, yeah. We haven't talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one character. So everybody else, if Anne has a problem with them, eventually they love Anne, whether it's Aunt Josephine, whether it's Diana's mom, who I don't think ever really loves Anne, but you know what? Anne saves her kid's life, so she'll deal.
She lets her eat off the good china.
Yeah. So you know what? I think a lot of people, eat crow around Anne,
yeah.
But there's one character who is, how would you describe her?
The worst.
The absolute worst. Tell me more about her, Jacob.
Well, the first time we meet her, she's cheating on a spelling test. And then, actually, I forget what she's doing the last time we meet her, but something kind of terrible, I think.
Well, I think one of the last times we see her, she's like, she was at the boarding house, and she's like, oh, yeah, I saw you. You looked stupid. Oh, by the way, do you have cake?
I'm trying to find it. Oh, my freckles are really gone, and people are nice enough to tell me my hair is auburn now. All but Josie Pye. She informed me yesterday that she really thought it was redder than ever, or at least my black dress made it look redder. her morning dress. And she asked me if people who had red hair ever got used to having it. And comments, Marilla, I've almost decided to give up trying to like Josie Pye.
Marilla's like, yeah, she's a pie. All pies are shitty.
Yeah.
And I thought it was also funny that, Josie was the last of the pies. And so they made it very clear that Anne would not need to teach a pie.
Yes.
It's like, oh, don't worry, y'all. You're good. You don't have to deal with any more of those bullshit people.
Marilla, like, after Matthew's death, Marilla starts actually telling Anne what she thinks about people.
Oh, there it is. Josie is a pie, said Marilla sharply, so she can't help being disagreeable. I suppose people of that kind serve some useful purpose in society, but I must say I don't know what it is, any more than I know the use of thistles.
Yeah. So we should talk about this. So, I forget which episode it was because we released all these bonus episodes in all kinds of weird order. So I don't remember which episode this happened in. But you were talking about this book and you said,
I don't know, it shaped a lot of lives. I think it was a series that sort of, even though it was, an old book, when my peers and I were growing up, I think a lot of girls and a lot of women grew up reading this series that sort of taught us a lot about female friendship and a lot about, how to woman. And I don't think that there was a series like that for young boys.
And you were asking, for suggestions of kind of analogous series.
I am. I would love some suggestions.
Okay. So I got some nice emails about this. Lark Redacted says, I think that the societally approved way for boys to be friends was to go hunt down criminals together. However, I will nominate Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So I admit that the first thing that I thought of when you were talking about this was a series of books called The Three Adventurers, which I think I've mentioned before on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it quite fits the bill, nor do like Hardy Boys or things like that.
Well, Hardy Boys are brothers. They don't count.
But also, like, I think part of the whole thing with Anne is that she grows from 11 to 16 and a half in it and like matures, and you kind of get to see her over the course of this section of her life. And that isn't the case for those kinds of books. And also they're not well written in the way that, I mean, I haven't reread the Three Adventurers books, but I assume they're pretty pulpy, really.
But I think, at least the part that or the age group that you think of when you think of Anne isn't really when she goes away to Queens. It's all the stuff that happens before that. So it's like from 11 to maybe 14,
mm-hmm.
where she first meets all these friends and sort of feels safe to be herself without fear of, people just not accepting her. And not that she really did, because she was always pretty much, hardcore Anne always.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when she felt like, okay, I can be me and no one's going to send me back to the orphanage, is when like Anne and her friendships really grew.
Yes. But also I think Marilla did have an effect on Anne, kind of her practicality and stuff, because at the end of the book, Anne sits her down and is like, oh, well, here's what we're going to do. And she makes out this plan that's very well thought out and is like, okay, I can still study for college, but I'll get a job at the school nearby. And, like she's got it all figured out. And there's no like flights of fancy there. It's all very kind of realistic. So
yeah, I
don't know that actually contradicts anything you said.
I don't know if it does, but I think it these are just all parts of so boy versions of Anne. So we're saying Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn.
I did think about Tom Sawyer. My main problem with Tom Sawyer is that and I haven't read the Tom Sawyer books in a long time. So I may not be remembering them correct. In fact, I think it's probably influenced by, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But my feeling is that he's always like kind of privileged in a way. And I mean, in Huck Finn, he's arguably kind of one of the bad guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I totally like that. And then The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, I think is closer, but I feel like that's a book for adults and not for children, really. But I have a longer letter from Diana Redacted,
okay,
which I think has some interesting ideas that we may enjoy talking about. Hi, Jake. This isn't actually about Anne of Green Gables, which, by the way, I used to reread the whole series every summer, but rather about the comment one of you made earlier about whether or not there are similar books for boys. I have been thinking about that since, and I have come up with two which are similar in different respects. One, the Great Brain books. Did you ever read any of those, Carrie?
I've never even heard of them.
Oh, they take place, I don't think it's in Utah. Maybe it's Oregon, but it's orphans, and it's like this, not orphans, Mormons, different. And and the title character always has these schemes about how to kind of, I think, make money or things like that, or, get out of work or whatever. And then it's the narrator is his brother. There's a big series of them, and they kind of grow up through them. I read them all as a kid. I don't remember them that well right now. Anyway, I'll just read what Diana says, since I don't remember them as well. She says, I don't think the series follows John to adulthood. And I guess it's really more like the Little House books than the Anne books. But it had, had a kid growing up sort of on the frontier through many books. It's the only series I can think of that follows a boy like that, and they're about his own childhood. There are lots of boy series, but most don't really grow older. They just kind of stay the same. So that's one option. The second is more about the comment of teaching girls how to woman, or at least how to transition from childhood to adulthood. The only popular male character I can think of that gets to transfer from teen to adult in a functional way and on the page is Peter Parker.
Huh.
Peter Parker has spent a significant amount of time as both teen and adult, at least in the comics. He is one of the few comic book heroes who got to age, even if they didn't let him do that in the movies. I feel like boys get a lot of hero's journey stories that are only about the transition from teen to adult, but little where the character gets a significant amount of page time on both ends of that transition. And as both teen and adult, he has a life that is recognizably normal despite the superpowers in the movie star wife. I don't know if any of that is relevant, but I have come back to thinking about that comment a lot since I read it. I'm sure there are others, but every time I've thought about this, Peter Parker is the only one that comes to mind. So, Spider-Man.
So I need to really think about that because I think it would depend on how accessible Peter Parker's story is to a new reader.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a book that comes out in serial, where it's, every month there's a new issue, and which arc are you reading? How accessible would this particular storyline be to a new reader, to a young boy who is starting to get into comic books? I think it's a really interesting concept, but I don't know how it is in practice. What do you think?
Right. Like, it's definitely a little out there, but I think it's an interesting idea. And I mean, I think Spider-Man's origin story is pretty well known, like partly because they keep going over it in movies again, although not the most recent one.
Well, yeah, but I think that in movies, it doesn't really do a lot of aging.
Yeah, but like the idea of, he's this kind of talented kid who's good at science. He gets bitten by the spider. He initially tries to use it to make money, and then his Uncle Ben gets killed, and like that whole kind of journey of how he becomes a superhero. Anyway, I'm not going to insist on it. I just thought it was an interesting idea.
I think it's an interesting story, but I think, I guess I keep thinking about, like, how would a kid ingest this? Okay, so Peter Parker's origin story. How do you read that? What book is that in?
Right. You do have to get a collection of...
I mean, which you do, if you want to read Anne's whole story from age 11 to who knows when, you do have to get a collection, but I guess it's just a matter of, is it The Amazing Spider-Man? Is it Peter Parker? Which series would you get?
I mean, I'll tell you another one that came to mind, which I think probably also doesn't quite work, but like, what are you going to do? Did you ever read Danny, the Champion of the World by Roald Dahl?
Who didn't?
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I mean, that one is kind of more about adults. Like, I don't remember there being any kids in the book other than Danny. And it's also I think it covers maybe a couple of months of time. So it doesn't really work, but he kind of, it is like in the sense that he kind of learns about the world of adults and what is, quote, really going on, end quote, and so on.
Well, I think Roald Dahl is really good with that in general.
Yeah.
From Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and then The Great Glass Elevator. And then, in a lot of the other books, it's, the kids are smarter than the adults, and, say the witches, the kids are sort of figuring out, like, what's going on behind the scenes. So, I mean, that's sort of a Roald Dahl thing. What about And it's not really so much as seeing a kid grow up to an adulthood, but seeing a kid sort of learn about the world, a boy learning about the world. What about, oh God, what the Phantom Tollbooth?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good book.
I mean, that book is really about the journey. That's a kid who doesn't know shit about shit.
True.
And
is kind of a jerk.
Is kind of a jerk. And, he has this huge, long, ridiculous journey where he learns about himself. He learns about how to help others. He learns about how to be a person. And maybe a book like that is a little bit more like what I'm thinking about. It's like teaching a boy like how to be a civil human being.
Yeah.
Because you think about like books that are about like how to be a man. It's all like Hemingway bullshit and how to hunt. Fuck that shit. We don't need enough. Goddamn, what the hell is his name? Nick Adams. I'm done with that shit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So the person who suggested we read this book, Steph Redacted, sent us a list of discussion topics.
I would love to discuss all of these. Let's go for it.
Oh, okay. Shall I go through?
Yeah, let's go through the list.
Okay. Gilbert Blythe, attention-seeking meanie or total dreamboat?
Neither. What do you think? I mean, I don't think he's an attention-seeking meanie. I think he's probably a genuinely nice guy eventually.
Yes, exactly.
I think he was a dumb kid, and I think he regretted that.
Yeah, well, after she hit him over the head with her slate.
Well, I'd regret just about anything at that point.
Yeah. So, right. I mean, Gilbert serves as a useful, I guess, encouragement to Anne to beat him at everything. And, but mainly, my main thing that I remember about Gilbert Blythe is Anne hitting him over the head with her slate and breaking it. A great moment, which I feel is totally justified, even though I am opposed to violence generally. Okay, another discussion topic from Steph Redacted. Matthew, quiet dullard or perfect dad?
Yes and yes. I love him. He's quiet. He is dull, and he is perfect.
Yeah, and he's not like he knows which way the wind's blowing. Like there are, I think, like 3 or 4 times in the book where he actually expresses an opinion on how Anne should be raised, and he's basically always right. The sleeves, yes. Anne should be allowed to go to the summer concert or whatever the heck it is, and so on. And then the final one, Josie Pye, likable or ugh, just the worst?
Ugh, just the worst.
Yes.
She's a mean, spiteful little rat. And I just don't like her.
Yeah. Is that more or less everything?
I think that's more or less everything. I'm not going to get into any of the TV shows.
Okay. I'll read Eva's original email to me, Eva Redacted. I would say that Anne is one of the most interesting and realistic young female characters in all fiction. She's high-spirited, intensely creative, not without a sense of humor, and tries to see the good side in most situations, unless she's in the depths of despair. She is confident, proud, and holds grudges too, so she really felt like one of the first 3-dimensional girls I had read in all of the classic fiction I read as a child, which was a lot. As someone who grew up homeschooled, I think I also identified strongly with her feeling like an outsider and not really knowing how to go about having friends, although desperately wanting them. Although Anne is sensitive and has high spirits, she is tough and relentless in her desire of her pursuits. It was a lot to relate to and look up to as a young girl reading the books when I was about the same age as Anne in the books. Anyway, that's a few of my thoughts on the Anne series off the top of my head. My only negative comment is that Lucy Maud Montgomery seemed to prefer her newer characters as the series went on, and that I was enraged when in the very last book, Marilla's death was mentioned in the first chapter as a by the way.
Yeah, that is the thing that happens, and that pisses me off, and I don't like it. And if I could give Ella Montgomery a piece of my mind, I would.
Yeah. I was livid about that, says Eva. In my opinion, the first 3 or so books were the best. It started going downhill on Anne and her House of Dreams, but the books with her children, especially Rilla of Ingleside, was a little redeeming, aside from the slight to Marilla. Lastly, do not ever watch the 3rd installment of the Canadian movie series! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. It's basically horrible fan fiction with the love triangle for Anne thrown in for no apparent reason after she's married, and some historically inaccurate stuff surrounding war, which just takes you out of the Avonlea universe and acts like a dulled version of her normal self. It's a travesty, and that's that. So I don't know that I have anything to add to that.
I got nothing to say.
Yeah. So let's move on to something that I didn't take notes about. Good job, Jake. So what is the next book we're reading?
I don't know.
I'm sure it's going to be every bit as good as Anne of Green Gables or better.
I'm not sure about that.
It is The Selection by Kiera Cass.
Oh, fuck. You're in for a treat. Okay.
Yeah.
That book is some serious bullshit, y'all. It is bad. And I have read every single book in the series. Like, that's my glowing recommendation. It's the sort of shit that's so bad you can't help but read the sequels.
Yeah. Carrie and I exchanged some email about this because Carrie was like, maybe is it time that we read another book that we knew we would hate? And I said, yeah, I think it is. So this will be another Shiver situation.
I think it will be. I think it's actually a little more well written than Shiver.
Yeah.
But it's bullshit. So y'all, let me break it down for you.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the future, and we're in a it's not really post-apocalyptic, but it's definitely dystopian.
Okay.
A dystopian future where we have a king and a prince who needs to take a wife. So what do? They take girls from every district and they put them on a TV show.
Huh. I've never heard of anything like that before.
Never once. And so they whittle it down to get, the girl who's going to be the prince's wife. And it is The Selection.
Yeah. I read the summary of this, and I believe my comment to you was, wait, so is this basically Awoken but dystopian and serious?
Sort of.
So that's what we're going to read, and you can read it also if you want, or you can just hear us what we have to say.
I think you should read it. It's really, really bad.
And then I think after that we're going to do Libra Bray's Beauty Queens.
Oh, that book is baller.
And then you know what we're going to do after that, Carrie?
What?
A certain book by a certain author named Stephanie Perkins.
Oh my god, tell me more. Okay, so Stephanie Perkins, tell me more.
The name of the book is There's Someone Inside Your House. It's not out yet. It's due out on September 26, 2017.
It's gonna be it's YA horror.
It's YA horror.
It's YA horror written by Stephanie Perkins.
Yeah. So we're really looking forward to that. So that's happening next. So thanks to Shaenon Garrity for our icon. Thanks to the Sentimental Favorites for our theme song. I'm going to actually play one of the Anne's Cordial songs, which has nothing to do with Anne of Green Gables, but why not? At the end of this episode, thanks to them for letting me do that. And thanks to Ear Trumpet Audio, which is our podcast network.
Yeah, so I think everybody should donate money to the Patreon so you can listen to our commentary on this super trashy
Riverdale, the CWTV show that is super trashy. And wow.
Yeah, there's something to be said about Riverdale. I don't know if any of it's good, but there's something to be said. So
visit eartrumpetaudio.com for all your podcast needs. You can follow it on Twitter at eartrumpetaudio or on Facebook at eartrumpetaudio. There are a bunch of podcasts on the network that you should listen to, including this one.
One list, one film nerd, 100 movies. The Realist, a podcast about the AFI's top 100 American movies of all time. Epics like Ben-Hur.
I think Heston sleptwalked through the film.
Musicals, like Yankee Doodle Dandy.
I mean, it's cool he wrote all these songs, but I don't really see why he gets a movie.
And thought-provoking dramas like Do the Right Thing.
African-American themed film had vanished from the cinematic landscape.
Each week, my guest and I discuss the cultural and historical relevance of these movies and the necessity of lists like this in the first place. Subscribe at eartrumpetaudio.com or wherever fine podcasts are sold.
And as Carrie said, you can support us, the Patreon, and get to hear us blab about a TV series that is at patreon.com/eartrumpet. And it's basically you pledge a monthly amount of money and then you get some free stuff. Well, no, not free stuff.
You get stuff.
You get stuff. Thanks, Carrie. You know, Carrie.
Yeah, Jacob.
I promise faithfully never to forget you, the friend of your youth.
Oh, should I just cut a lock of your hair now?
Well, you better do it now because I'm losing it pretty quick.
It's like a strange amnesia. I just can't escape. Unless I'm next to you, I cannot see your face. It slips through my fingers. You fall through the cracks. I cannot picture you. I just can't get you back. You leave me face blind, face blind. I can't keep you in my mind. You leave me face blind, face blind. I can't keep you in my mind. I'd like to memorize you, draw you from head to toe. See you in 2020, not just a hazy glow. You're like a jigsaw puzzle I threw across the room. So many different pieces, are they really all you? You leave me face blind, face blind. I can't keep you in my mind. Face blind, face blind. I can't keep you in my mind. I know you by the way you move, your voice, and that's a fact. I think I try too hard. It keeps me coming back. Couldn't pick you up out of a lineup. Couldn't tell if you were Jack or Joe. You could grow a beard or shave your head. I still wouldn't know. You leave me face blind, face blind. I can't keep you in my mind. You leave me face blind, face blind. I can't keep you in my mind.
eartrumpetaudio.com.
Ideas and entertainment.
Loud and clear.